Now, we brought you more heartache from across our closed borders last night. State premiers think their job is to keep infections out. They don't seem to care about jobs, small business, education, medical treatment, families, love, care and convenience. They just think the infection count for a disease that is trifling for more than 95% of the people who get it, they think that's all that matters. So we've had an expectant mum in northern New South Wales forced to wait almost a full day and then fly all the way south to Sydney instead of the short hop to a hospital in Brisbane. She lost a baby daughter. There have been many stories of hardship and bureaucratic intransigence along that border and other borders around the country. It's like Australia is no longer one country. Last night we heard from David Horn in northern New South Wales, whose daughters are at boarding school in Toowoomba in Queensland, but they can't come home for holidays. Home is only 100 k's south of the border. There's no virus around. They just want to be home and together as a family. But Queensland says it can only happen if they go into solitary quarantine for a fortnight upon their return.
And then we've got a girl in grade 8 who really struggled at the first part mentally to get her head round, not having any access from her parents. And I guess we'd appeal to the chief medical officer in Queensland and the Premier and the Minister to, base their decisions on science.
It's a disgrace. We've brought you lots of these cases and we'll stay on the case. I'll have another example in just a few moments. But how does it make these people feel? How does it make you feel when you see this? The AFL's top brass and their families, Gillon McLachlan, who runs the biggest footy comp in the land, and Eddie Maguire, who chairs one of the biggest clubs, they fly into Queensland across the border. Not a problem for them. Sure, the Queensland government will tell you they're going into quarantine bubbles and all the rest of it. But this is wrong. This is hypocritical. This is unfair. Now, I'm not against the AFL people getting entry. I'm all for free travel and more exemptions to these dumb border rules. But you can't have one rule for the so-called elites, the money, the power, and another rule for the people. The double standard here was called out in Canberra today.
Surely, if the Queensland State Government can work with the AFL to fly CEOs and football personalities from Melbourne for a media announcement, they can work with the families whose children are effectively locked away in boarding schools.
Yeah, Queenslanders and their friends just south of the border are being screwed over by Annastacia Palaszczuk. She's treating mainstream Australians like garbage while she crawls and bows to the AFL and other celebrities. Queensland should be better than this. Labor should be better than this. A Labor Premier is supposed to look after the people, but Palaszczuk is more interested in doing deals and looking after these powerful mates. Her neighbours are running out of patience.
I've reached out to her again this morning and I hope she returns my contact. I hope she has time to speak to me today.
No, that's ridiculous. She hasn't made any calls.
National Cabinet meets on Friday, so let's hope Scott Morrison can get the states to be a bit more cooperative then. But just back to the grand final, I warned you a while back, look out for taxpayers' dollars. I suggested a couple of weeks ago that Queensland would get the event and taxpayers would end up paying when they shouldn't. I love the AFL and I'm glad the grand final's going to be held away from Melbourne for a bit of promotion. But this game and this sport is self-funding because it's so good it pays its way, or at least it should. But Palaszczuk is handing over taxpayers' money to the most profitable sporting competition in the country. She won't say how much, using commercial inconfidence, that ruse, that old ruse. She's using that to hide the numbers here. She's using taxpayers' money to host a huge sporting event a week before her election.
That's commercial in confidence, but we weren't in a bidding competition. This was about who could work the best with the AFL to deliver not just the grand final, but a lasting legacy program as well. Well, it's commercial in confidence. Yeah, but this happens for a whole range of events.
The Premier's using Queensland taxpayers' money for a grand final that would be played in Brisbane anyway. That's where the AFL would want it. And she's putting on this big event for 30,000 people. At the same time, she's stopping pregnant mums going to hospitals in Queensland. or kids in Queensland schools from going home from their holidays across the border, or allowing other people in Queensland to work south of the border. Palaszczuk is wasting money and ignoring the concerns of real people with real problems. Queensland, heartless one day, grand finals the next. Let's go to Queensland now and catch up with communications technician Luke Corcoran. Luke, thanks for joining us. You're at Canungra, close to the New South Wales border, back in the Gold Coast hinterland, I understand. Tell us about your business. You used to do a lot of work south of the border, but that's completely stopped because of the border closures. What traumas are you faced with?
Oh, well, that's correct. So I've had to lay people off just because we can't get across the border and possibly close the doors, basically, if we can't get there.
How many people have you had to lay off, and are they Queenslanders?
Yes, I normally employ, including myself, 10 people out of this town alone.
And normally you'd be going across the border, doing communications work, linking people up to telecom, NBN, broadband and the like. It's not like you're going down there giving massages or cutting hair. It's a fairly non-contact sort of a caper, isn't it?
Well, I don't actually have to come in contact with a single person. We can actually cross the border, take all our food, stay in accommodation, self-isolate while we're there, and then go to work on the street, out in the open, and not see a single person.
So you've got yourself a good business going here. You're based in Queensland, a lot of your work south of the border. You're employing people, creating jobs, and they've just been cut off by this hard border closure. Have you tried to get exemptions? It seems like exactly the sort of thing where you should be able to get some sort of exemption.
I have applied for exemptions many times, but you just really don't get any information back apart from response that just gives you the same information on their website. They don't contact you, nothing at all.
What's your take on the Queensland Premier's argument that she's doing this to protect Queenslanders? She's doing this to protect people like you.
Oh, what can you say? I think she did a pretty good job the first time, but there's less going on this time and she's taken a harder stand, and it's pretty unreasonable.
What's the outlook for your business then? Presumably you're getting some work still going on the Queensland side of the border. You've laid off 5 people. What are your prospects for the people you're still employing, and where to from here?
There's not a lot of prospect at the second. There's a small amount of work in Queensland here for us. So basically I have my boys working out on the farm, trying to give them their 40 hours a week to keep them going so they can pay their bills.
And tell us about the strain on the friends and family.
Oh, well, it's always a strain. You know, you're trying to make ends meet and, you know, you're trying to keep the uptake of the business, the repairs and insurances, and everyone's got their hand out. So you've got to sort of go ahead and pay it.
Well, thanks for joining us, Luke, and best of luck in the future.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Luke Corcoran there. We'll pass his details on to Senator James McGrath, who's been taking up these issues in the Senate, I noticed, from after last night's program. We'll see if he can take that up.